According to the Federal Communications Commission, 8 people are killed and 1,161 are injured daily in incidents reported as distraction-affected crashes in the United States. A study conducted in 2015 showed that the most common age in which distracted driving occurs is between the ages of 16 to 24 years old. I myself have always found these statistics to be fascinating. The lack of patience these kids my age and younger seem to have is incredible to me. Having had dear friends be directly affected by tragedies having to do with distracted driving, and even having a close call myself, I feel the need to help people become more aware of it. Distracted driving is somewhat of a pandemic in this nation, and it needs to be cured. There are too many people in this world who are adversely affected by those who choose to answer a text instead of pay attention to the road. Probably the saddest part of this topic is how many of us really don't realize the problem that it poses, but the truth is that we are all affected in one way or another. Because of this, today I will share with you some of the dangers and results of distracted driving in our nation and what you can do about it. There are many ways that distracted driving can affect us all. What seems like a short 2 or 3 seconds to type out a text or even turn the dial on the radio to find a new song can be disastrous. I remember growing up and thinking that all the statistics that people would tell us about these things were ridiculous. I thought I was a great multitasker and I would never be so dumb as to put myself in jeopardy. But that all changed for me one day. When I was 16 years old, I was driving around with my best friend and her boyfriend. I was the one driving, and I had been texting a boy that I liked, and I apparently thought that that was more important than the road. I only looked up to see the curb coming up to me when Bree screamed my name, and I swerved as soon as I could, and luckily nothing happened, but I learned very quickly that this wasn't a joke. According to an article in USA Today, teens who choose to text and drive are also most likely engaging in other dangerous habits in their lives. The more reckless people are in reference to this distracted driving, the more reckless they become in the rest of their lives. In a report given by the CDC, it was stated that in 2015, 391,000 people were injured in motor vehicle crashes involving a distracted driver. In addition to this, the number of deaths reported in 2015 due to distracted driving was 3,447 people. Think of that number, 3,447 people whose lives were tragically cut short because of a reckless decision, either from them or from a complete stranger. Even so, there's an increasing amount of prevention and awareness campaigns coming about to help with this growing problem. Many ads and programs have come about, such as AT&T's It Can Wait campaign. I remember back in high school, the different assemblies that we would go to bring awareness and warn against texting and driving. They always seemed very moving to me and very touching, and it seemed like I should listen to them, but it never really had a deep personal connection for me like it did for the people that were actually giving the presentations. But when I was serving in my mission in Michigan, I served with an elder who did have a very deep connection to things like this, and he would talk about it with us on different occasions. His own sister had been killed in an incident involving distracted driving, and he obviously would get very emotional about it when he would talk about it. He would tell us in zone meetings and give talks about it in church, about he and his family being the ones going and giving those assemblies. And he told about this one time that he'd given it at his own high school that he went to, where people knew them, and how hard that was for him. And that suddenly made it so much more real for me, that these were real people, that these weren't just numbers that were being affected. These were actual people, and they could be me, they could be my friends. In addition to things like this, there are also preventative measures in place in the form of new laws that are coming about to prevent these tragedies. For example, in Washington state this past summer, a law was put into place which has been commonly referred to in the area as an EDUI, or an electronic driving while under the influence. This law prohibits any sort of distraction while you're driving, including the consumption of food and holding electronic devices for more than a single touch of a button. Washington has had success in the past with other preventative measure laws, such as the Click It or Ticket program, to help against people driving without a seatbelt. And because of that law, it now has a 95% compliance rate, and people are safer in that aspect. Laws such as these help not only teens and young adults, but the parents as well. According to 77% of teens, adults tell them not to text or email while driving, yet the adults themselves do it all the time. My own father was an example of this, as my mother would try to tell me and my brothers of the dangers of distracted driving. My dad would come home and tell us about the movies he watched on Netflix while he was in stop-and-go traffic on the way home from Seattle. Not everyone evidently is immune to this temptation and very real danger. So you see this great epidemic, it can affect all of us, and it's our personal responsibility to do something about it. We need to be setting a good example for those around us, for our children and those of the next generation. As we teach people about the dangers that distracting driving poses, we can help improve this world that we live in and make it a safer place. I pray that this has been enlightening for each of you and that you will always remember the dangers that come while driving under the influence of technology.